Have you ever made one mistake and suddenly felt like everything was falling apart? Maybe you said the wrong thing. Maybe you made a bad decision. Maybe you failed when everyone expected you to succeed. And for a moment you thought, that's it, I ruined everything. But what if your biggest mistake could become the reason your life changes? Today, I want to tell you a story about a young man named Daniel. One ordinary Monday morning, Daniel made a mistake at work. It took him less than 5 seconds to make it, but the consequences changed his life. He thought he had lost everything. He thought his career was over. He even thought about giving up. But he didn't know that this mistake was about to teach him the most important lesson of his life. Welcome to English with Confidence. Today, don't worry about understanding every single word. Just relax, listen to the story, and learn English naturally as the story unfolds. And stay until the end, because Daniel's final decision is something you might need to hear today. Let's begin. Daniel was 24 years old and he had one big dream. He wanted to build a better life for himself. He didn't want to be rich or famous. He simply wanted to become someone his family could be proud of. Every morning, Daniel woke up early, went to work, came home tired, and spent a little time learning new skills. He believed that if he worked hard enough, his life would eventually change. But one Monday morning, everything went wrong. Daniel worked at a small technology company in Chicago. His job was simple. He organized customer information and prepared important reports for his manager. He had been working there for almost 2 years, and he had never made a serious mistake. That morning, his manager gave him an important task. "Daniel, I need this report before 3 o'clock, his manager said. "Please check everything carefully before you send it." Daniel nodded. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." He sat at his desk and started working. He checked the numbers. He checked the names. He checked the dates. Everything looked correct, but Daniel was tired. The night before, he had stayed awake late because he was studying for an online course. He had only slept for a few hours. Around 2 o'clock, Daniel finished the report. He looked at it one last time, attached the file to an email, and pressed send. At that exact moment, he noticed something. His heart stopped. He had attached the wrong file. It wasn't the final report. It was an old version containing incorrect information. Daniel immediately tried to recall the email, but it was too late. The client had already received it. His hands started shaking. "Oh no," he whispered. He ran to his manager's office. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "I made a mistake." His manager looked at him. "What happened?" Daniel explained everything. His manager became very serious. "Daniel, this was an important report. You were told to check it carefully." "I know, I'm really sorry, I'll fix it." But the damage had already been done. The client was angry. The company had to spend hours correcting the information. Daniel felt terrible. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had done. That evening, he sat alone on the bus going home. He looked out the window, but he didn't really see the city around him. He kept hearing the same sentence in his head. "I ruined everything." When he arrived home, he didn't even turn on the lights. He sat on his bed and stared at the floor. For the first time in his life, Daniel wanted to give up. He thought, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I should stop trying. He opened his phone and looked at job advertisements. He thought about quitting. He thought about going back to his old life. He thought about finding an easier job where nobody would expect much from him. Then his phone rang. It was his mother. Daniel almost didn't answer, but finally he picked up. "Hi, Mom." His mother immediately noticed something was wrong. "Daniel, are you okay?" He stayed quiet for a moment, then he told her everything. He told her about the mistake, the angry client, his manager, and his fear of losing his job. His mother listened carefully. When he finished, she said something Daniel would never forget. "Daniel, you made a mistake. You are not a mistake." Daniel didn't say anything. His mother continued. "You are going to make mistakes in your life. Everyone does, but you have to decide what you will do after the mistake. You can sit there and hate yourself, or you can stand up and fix what you can." Daniel looked down at the floor. "But what if I can't fix it?" he asked. His mother smiled through the phone. "Then you learn from it, and you try again." Those 4 words stayed in Daniel's mind. Try again. The next morning, Daniel arrived at work earlier than usual. He was nervous. He expected his manager to fire him. Instead, his manager called him into the office. "Daniel, sit down." Daniel sat quietly. His manager looked at him and said, "Yesterday was a serious mistake, but I want to know something. What did you learn?" Daniel thought for a few seconds. "I learned that I shouldn't rush important work. I should always check the file before sending it, and I shouldn't work when I'm too tired to think clearly." His manager nodded. "Good. Then show me that you learned it." Daniel spent the next several days fixing the problem. He contacted the people affected by the mistake. He apologized. He corrected the information. He created a checklist so the same mistake would not happen again. Slowly, things began to improve. The client accepted the correction. His manager saw his effort. Daniel kept his job, but something inside him had changed. Before the mistake, Daniel believed success meant never failing. After the mistake, he understood something much more important. Success does not mean you never fall. Success means you refuse to stay down. Months passed. Daniel continued working hard. He also continued studying. He became more careful, more confident, and more responsible. 1 year later, his manager gave him a bigger responsibility. Daniel was surprised. "Why me?" he asked. His manager smiled. "Because I know you can handle mistakes now." Daniel understood what he meant. A person who has never failed may be afraid of failure, but someone who has failed, learned, and stood up again becomes stronger. Daniel's biggest mistake had become one of his greatest lessons. But the story didn't end there. A few years later, Daniel started his own small business. It wasn't easy. In the beginning, almost nothing worked. He lost money. Customers said no. People told him his idea would never succeed. There were nights when Daniel sat alone and wondered if he should quit, but every time he felt like giving up, he remembered that Monday morning at his old job. He remembered the wrong file. He remembered the fear. He remembered sitting on the bus believing his life was over. And then he remembered his mother's words. "You made a mistake. You are not a mistake." So Daniel tried again, and again, and again. His business slowly grew, not because everything suddenly became easy, but because Daniel stopped expecting success to be easy. He understood that failure was not the opposite of success. Sometimes, failure was part of the road to success. One evening, years after that terrible mistake, Daniel received a message from a young employee who worked for his company. The young man had made a serious mistake and was thinking about quitting. Daniel called him. "I heard what happened," Daniel said. The young man sounded worried. "I'm sorry, I think I ruined everything." Daniel smiled. "I know exactly how you feel." He told him about the wrong report, the angry client, the fear, and the night he wanted to quit. Then Daniel said, "Listen carefully. One mistake can change your life, but you decide whether it changes your life for the better or for the worse." The young man was silent. Daniel continued, "Don't waste your mistake. Learn from it." That sentence became something Daniel lived by. Don't waste your mistake. Think about your own life for a moment. Maybe you failed an exam. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you started something and quit. Maybe someone rejected you. Maybe you made a decision that you wish you could take back. Maybe you're looking at your life right now and thinking, it's too late for me. But what if it isn't? What if the thing you call your biggest failure is actually teaching you something you couldn't learn any other way? What if your mistake is not the end of your story? What if it's the beginning of a better one? You don't need to have everything figured out today. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know exactly where your life is going. You just need to keep moving. One step, then another, and another. There will be days when you feel strong. There will also be days when you feel tired, disappointed, and afraid. On those days, remember Daniel. Remember that a bad day is not a bad life. A failure is not your identity. A mistake is not the end. Sometimes you will fall. Sometimes you will lose. Sometimes you will feel like nobody believes in you. But you can still get back up. You can still learn. You can still try again. And sometimes, the person you become after the struggle is far stronger than the person you would have become without it. So if you made a mistake recently, don't spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for it. Take responsibility. Learn the lesson. Fix what you can, apologize when you need to, and then keep going. Your story is not over. You are not your worst decision. You are not your biggest failure. You are the person who gets to decide what happens next. Maybe today is not the day everything changes. Maybe today is simply the day you decide not to give up. And sometimes that one decision is enough to change everything. So keep going, even when it's slow. Keep going when nobody notices. Keep going when you are afraid. Keep going when you fail. Because one day, you may look back at the moment you wanted to quit and realize something beautiful. That wasn't the moment your story ended. That was the moment you learned how to continue. And if you remember only one sentence from this story, remember this: you can make a mistake without becoming a failure. You can fall without staying down. You can lose today and still win tomorrow. So take a breath. Stand up. Learn the lesson. And try again.